first edition of our webinar series. My name is Knut. I'm the head of customer success here. I'll not be the one talking. I'll leave that up to Gunnar with a way better technical background than what I have. He'll run us through some of our tips and tricks, especially our recommended actions, and how Be Sure Insights can help you gain better control, optimize your processes, and yeah, I'll leave it up to Gunnar.
Thank you. Today we're talking about optimizing and controlling the Entra ID privilege roles, users, groups, and service principal holding these roles. As Knut told us, this is the first step in our recommended actions. So when you install Be Sure Insights, you will find that you have a lot of work to do and you have optimizations to do, but where should you start? In our opinion, it's the most important thing to do is to ensure that all the privileged accounts are protected at all times. We will later talk about the next steps like reducing cost and MFA and service principles. But today we are going to talk about how to address the privileged accounts. So we often do training sessions with clients installing Be Sure Insights. And what we've learned from having a walkthrough of these is that the lack of visibility within the portals leads to overprivileged access to users, groups, and service principals. They are not intended, and you will find that these overprivileged accesses leads to security risks or security exposure and some compliance challenges. So let's jump directly into the recommendations. The most important part is to create a uniform way of providing roles to administrators. How should you do it, and what's the best way of going with it? So our recommendation is to always use dedicated personal cloud-only user accounts for administrative purposes, meaning that you should not add privileged roles to normal work accounts with Teams and Outlook and stuff like that. Keep them separated. You should also enforce phishing-resistant MFA on all these administrative user accounts, and also consider configuring privileged identity management to avoid that all these administrative accounts holds the roles on a permanent basis. So let them elevate and work on the least privileged strategy. You should also consider configuring approval for the highly privileged roles, such as global administrator and privileged role administrator roles and roles like that, so that you protect them from being used when they are actually not needed. Let's say you want to work with Intune or you want to create a user, you don't need the global admin privileges to do so. So by adding an approval step, you would avoid that users are overprivileged on a daily basis. The approval step is also something to consider, because if you decide that the rest of the administrators should approve, then it often leads to confusion who is approving for whom, and it's always a good idea when you get the email that Gunnar, as Gunnar Weld admin, has an approval waiting for to become a global administrator. And if you just approve it out of the box without talking to me, if my Gunnarveld admin account was compromised, then there is no use of having this approval step. So one way of going around it is to set the normal work account as the approval of the administrative account that you hold. And that way, you know, as an individual, that you need to approve your own request. And that's not bad from a security perspective, maybe from a compliance perspective. But if you're not that many, please consider this carefully. It's also a good practice to configure user risk and signing risk policies using conditional access, meaning that you should protect these administrative accounts from impossible travels and such stuff that you're signing in from networks that is not good and stuff like that. So configure this as well. And you could also, when you've done the previous stuff, you could actually add the privileged access workstation to avoid that you are working with administrative privileges from a workstation that you do consume Outlook and Teams and Slack and other collaboration tools. And if you click a malicious link, you should provide it from opening in an elevated browser. So maybe the most important thing is that you actually review these role assignments frequently, actually saying, is this role really needed for this guy's work or this girl's work? All these things above, most of them, requires that you have an Entra ID P2 license assigned to the user, or at least to stay compliant. I'll come with a tip on this one at the end of the session. Microsoft has also some best practices, and they say that you should avoid assigning the Entra ID roles to an on-premises synchronized user. And the reason behind it is that if it gets compromised on premises, then the cloud is also compromised, and vice versa. So please avoid assigning these Entra ID roles to synced users. And you should also avoid assigning Entra ID roles to normal user accounts, that is consuming Teams and Outlook and Slack and such, as previously stated. If you are distributing the Entra ID roles using groups, there is some concerns that you should actually think about. There is a way of self-elevation possibilities if you use groups, as Microsoft states in their documentation. There is also some limitations in some of the admin centers of Microsoft, like say the Exchange Admin Center, the Azure Information Protection Portal, the classic one. But the most important thing is the lack of showing which user is member of a group when you are running the access reviews on Microsoft Entra roles. But where do we begin then? How do we evaluate the existing role assignments? I was thinking about giving you a demo, but first off, we will say that we have written an extensive document stating problem description and some considerations, and considerations assigning different types of roles to these Entra ID roles, and also how you should clean up your environment and how you should do it. But if we go to the B-Shore Insights application, we have a security and Entra ID roles report where you can actually see what's going on. So first off, most important thing is to protect them from being misused by anyone else. So let's focus on MFA registration. Is the user registered for MFA or is he not? If they are not have a registered MFA, please make sure that they are protected by some conditional access rules based on public IP address or something else in order to protect these accounts. Normally, it's the synchronization accounts and others, but also users that have never signed in, that is, haven't registered MFA because they've never been introduced to this MFA registration campaign. So find the users that have never signed in, remove them, or remove the roles. Then you could focus on the inactive user accounts. Who are they and how should they be here? Do they need a role or not? And then go to the active ones and investigate each role, like the global administrator one, to protect your own environment. It's also possible to show which, if a user has these licenses that we talked about for Teams and Outlook and stuff like that, and we are currently deploying a new report that will have this filter template. So when you update, you will have the filter templates, and then you can actually see privileged account with license combined. What it does, it is ticking the slicer menu, and it's also configuring the column selector so that you see it very easily in the entity details table, which users hold which license. So here you can see in my demo data, there is a lot of Microsoft 365 E3 that holds different types of roles, which is not good. Like a global administrator having Microsoft 365 E3, it's not advised. You also have the possibility to group the result in the entity details table by looking at all the groups. If you're using groups, then you will see which groups has assigned which roles, and you can see it very easily. We don't show the members of the group the same way as Microsoft Privileged Identity Management Access Reviews is struggling with. So groups are shown, and you can see what roles they do have. Then you also have something called service principals. This is the applications and often the integrations that you've set up in the applications and what type of access they do have. So we can see that there is an application, 8 of them. They're all hidden, the display names of them, because this is based on a customer. And we have 8 applications holding global administrator permissions role in this environment. And is this correct? Should it be like this? Please walk through all the service principals and see whether they should have it or not. That was a very quick demo. Let's jump back to the recommendations. So first off, find out how is your environment looking today. Then clean it up based on what you see. Is it really necessary to assign this role to this person? If no, remove it. Then make sure that it's only dedicated cloud-only user accounts that holds these privileged roles. Enforce phishing-resistant MFA for these user accounts. Then use privileged identity management and assign the privileged roles as eligible, meaning they should not be permanent, the roles. And this approval step for the most critical roles. And then establish the user risk and sign-in risk policies using conditional access. And then configure access reviews for Entra ID roles and review them frequently. This is not something that many does, but as long as you have an Entra ID P2 license, it's allowed and it is working like a charm. So you should definitely actually use it. If you want to clean up, you can set the user themselves as the reviewer. And if they don't answer, the roles are removed automatically. You also get some AI functionality in this that will help you actually do the reviews. It's also great for compliance, and if you have an audit that says who had which access at which time, then these are invaluable. So then you could actually consider using this privileged access workstation to avoid that malicious links are opened in elevated sessions, to avoid that the personal computers that have malware or are compromised is having access to your environment with privileged roles. And then we have a tip that these Microsoft Entra ID licenses that is required, the P2 licenses for using conditional access rules for risky sign-ins and risky users and privileged identity management and access reviews. It is one person, one license, and Microsoft stated this in a blog in June 2024, meaning that you can license your normal work account and then you're compliant if you actually scope it to the admin accounts. And so it's not needed to buy extra licenses to do this, as long as either your normal work account or the admin account holds the P2 license. That was all that I had for today. So if anyone has any questions, please just unmute and ask.